All right, everybody. So for your message on a bottle project, this is an example of one of the flat bottles that we could possibly make for the project. Or you can go more cylindrical where it is rounded and it's a full 360 view with your design. And these ones could be actually a little bit taller. But in order to make this or this, we need to have specific templates for each of your sides and pieces, since we are going to be making these entirely out of slabs and maybe a few coils here and there. So like this would be the template for this one, and the other templates would be different depending on your design. So let's talk about like the components first that you would need to make your template, and then I'll show you how to scale it to your dimension constraints. So first you would have, if you were doing more of this rectangular one, of course you would need a front and a back. You would then need the top and the bottom, as well as the sides for it, and then the neck portion here for this. So these would be all the parts and pieces you would need for something like that. And you could either go horizontal or vertical, depending on your design. We could then do like the bottle I was talking about, but here's more of a specific image. You would need basically 2 slabs and then some coils. So you would need a slab for the bottom as well as some coils for the top to get that gradual transition in the neck or in the shoulders here into that neck of that bottle. So when we look at that, that would be literally like a 3.5-inch base. You wouldn't go any smaller than that. And the whole grid paper itself, because once you wrap it around, that's pretty much just going to fit on top of your piece and create the walls. So it's gonna be pretty tall. This one you can go between 10 to 12 inches, but that's 10 to 12 inches all the way up to here. So this would be 10, 12. Okay, so don't go any taller than that 12. Actually, it'd be even a little bit better if you go slightly under, because the highest brick we have is exactly 12 inches for the kiln. And then you would just have to have coils to wrap around the top, as mentioned earlier. If you are going to do a different shape other than the rectangular prism, maybe you want more of a flat circular bottle, which would look more similar to this. Then for that, you would need this 6-inch or slightly bigger circle. So it's a 6-inch diameter, as well as a piece for the neck and another piece that is going to wrap around the whole circumference of that circle, just kind of like the other cylindrical bottle. But when this is all put together, this is basically like a flat bottle when it's all put together, and it will stand on one side because we'll flatten out the bottom just a little bit. And if you notice, for this, I had to actually combine 2 pieces of paper, of the grid paper, so that this way I was able to reach that whole circumference. So I kind of just taped as many as I could until it became to the size of the circumference, and then I just cut it down. But how do you actually start making that template? How do you know how to be in the size? So first, you're gonna be within a single grid paper. You might need another one. If you do, that's totally fine. You can grab more. But I'm gonna explain basically how to make the template for this one. And you are just gonna have to modify it depending on the specific shape that you are going to try and do yourself. So each of these squares are almost about a 1/2 inch. So like each one you can probably think of maybe like as 2 inches. It's slightly off. It's not exactly that. So when I measure this, it's like 3/4 of an inch. So not entirely. But I want to make a box that is going to be 5 inches by 6 inches. So it can stand like this. So I will first start off with the front and the back, because everything else will be measured based upon the front and the back where your design is actually going to go. And because I want a 6x5, it's going to be easier if I make the shorter side of the grid paper the 5 inches. So that's gonna go about here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. It's a little smaller than 5, but that's okay. If you wanna go to exactly 5, you can. But honestly, I recommend just doing up to the actual end of the grid or the square. It just makes it a little bit easier to count. So this is like 5 inches here. And then I will do 6 inches tall. So that's gonna end up being about 10 blocks. Let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that one's pretty much almost on the dot. So this is 6 inches here. Now, I need to also make the other sides of that box. So let's finish it off. And outline it. So now this is going to be needed 2 times because it's the front and the back. So I highly recommend that you label them so you don't get stuck and confused as to which one is which, and then you cut out extra pieces that you don't necessarily need. Now, given that this is basically geometry, I now also need to make all of the sides of it. So for the first side, it's gonna have to be the same length as this. So this would be 10 as well, so 10 squares. So it's just lining right up with it. And then I can decide how wide I actually want the edges to be. This example is 3. You could maybe go to 4, but I wouldn't go too wide because then it starts becoming more of a blocky cube, and then it's gonna be more area you're gonna have to decorate. So I tend to like it a little bit thinner, so I will do 3 squares. So 1, 2, 3. Line it all up. So then this would also be needed 2 times because I need the right side and the left side. Then I will also need the top and the bottom. So same thing here. We're gonna do 8 squares, so it's gonna match and line up with this side of the front. And then I also needed to line up with this one. So since this one was 3 squares, I'm going to need to make it 3 tall as well. Okay. And then lastly, I need a part for the neck. Now, the neck could be longer or taller if you want to. You might need more space. It didn't depend on your design, but remember you have size constraints that you need to stick within. So altogether, including the neck, it shouldn't be any taller than 8 inches. So from here to here should be about 8. And before I forget, I'm gonna label this one as well. So this is needed 2 times for the top and the bottom. And the neck. So just because I have already practiced this and I know the dimensions, a neck that is this size is actually going to be also 3 tall. So it fits perfectly in this grid paper here. And it's going to be 7 wide. So actually ignore that line here. It's gonna be this one. If I do 8, that's fine, but given that this is 3, once I roll it into itself, it's gonna be too big and it won't fit on top of here because, you know, this is only 3 squares, and once it makes its full roundabout, when I fold it, it then is too big. So ignore this one. Ignore. And I only need that 1 time for the neck. So this is what I would need for all of my parts and pieces. I will cut this out, and then I would use that to make my slabs. okay? And again, if you're doing something a little bit different, then you have to figure out what the dimensions are gonna be, how long your sides need to be, the depths and all that stuff, as long as you are in the size constraints of the project that is written on the board, okay?